Welcome to the Predictive PlayBook AT&T Byron Nelson PGA event taking place at the TPC Craig Ranch, a new venue for this event. I'm your host, John Ryan, and I am more than pleased to have our weekly guest and PGA expert David Bearman of ESPN on today's show to break down the best bets and betting strategies for the AT&T Byron Nelson that starts Thursday morning. And just to recap, David has been on one hell of a roll. He's posted significant profits in 9 of the last 10 PGA Tour events and absolutely nailed it with his best bet winning pick on Rory McIlroy last week. And believe me, I'm thankful because I tailed him. And 9 out of 10 weeks is just absolutely remarkable. David, welcome to the show. Congratulations on a monster Wells Fargo card.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Yeah, McIlroy came through for us, and as we talked last week on the show, I was nervous about picking him because his recent form wasn't great. But hey, when a guy owns the course and has the metrics to win at that course, sometimes you just gotta dive in and say, hey, you're not gonna get 18-1 on Rory McIlroy that often, and I liked the 18-1 and figured it was a good time to, just like with Jordan Spieth stepping up and winning, it was time for McIlroy, and now you look at it, and McIlroy is the favorite to win the PGA Championship. So you got to strike when you think is the appropriate time. And, you know, when you look at the gambling futures market, it's very similar to the stock market. You know, the right play isn't to buy the stock when it's at its peak. It's when it's down here and you think it's going to peak. And, you know, Rory stepped up big for us last week. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Bitcoin and S&P 500 charts I posted on Twitter today with the sentiment being way up in the atmosphere of overly bullish, but we'll have to see how that plays out. But anyway, for this week, Bryson DeChambeau had one heck of a week too. You know, he gets a 7 on 18. He's in 90th place. He decides to leave. He's on a chartered jet, and all of a sudden the agent tells him that, oh, by the way, you're in 68th. And then the way I heard it was that he flew back on very little sleep. He worked out twice, had about 5 protein shakes, didn't go to the driving range, putted a few, and then actually was 6 under, and then he double bogeyed 18 again. So I looked at the metrics from last week. He actually lost 5 shots total, tee to green. And he also was even par on the par 5s, which it has to be more than 100 events because that's as far back as I could go in my database, where he has played an event under par on the par 5s, and that was the first time in more than 100 that he did not play under par on the par 5s. So I got to think that he's probably one of the guys on your list this week.
Well, if you look at Bryson, all the things you just said, he flew back and forth because he messed up, thought he missed the cut, didn't sleep, didn't play well on the par 5s, had a triple, had a double. He still had a top 10, by the way.
Yeah, nice.
The guy went from missing the cut, getting in on the cut line, to going ahead and finishing T9 to pay us off on the top 10 bet. He didn't win, which is we also had. So if he's going to do that on a bad week, what's he going to do when he brings his A game on a course that, for the most part, John, we don't know a lot about this new course, but we do know that it's long, it's fairly straight, and from what I've read over the last 48 hours, the rough is not that thick. So long, straight, and not thick rough, meaning you can get away with missing the fairway. All of that adds up to a perfect type of course for Bryson DeChambeau, who literally just gets it out as far as he can and worries about it later. Where has Bryson failed? He is middle of the pack, if not worse, in accuracy off the tee. He leads the tour in off the tee strokes gained, tee to green strokes gained, overall strokes gained, driving distance, and eagles, but he struggles with the accuracy. A place like Augusta penalizes you for the accuracy. Obviously, a place like last week penalized you a little bit. That's why he hasn't done well at some of the courses. Everything that I've read, and take it with a grain of salt as you listen to the program today, because none of us have seen this course. It's a new course. But from everything we've read and the way it's played on the minor league circuit, it's a bomber's paradise. Get it out there. The rough isn't thick. You can miss. And as long as you can reach them, you're going to score. They're expecting very, very, very low scores, or I guess high scores. They're expecting it to be in the 19 to 20 range in terms of a winner. That to me screams, give me a bomber, give me a guy that can reach par 5s and make eagles. He leads the tour in eagles. And give me a guy that when the tee boxes are up can drive the par 4s. And as much as we've seen Bryson destroy some of these courses before, this is actually set up in his wheelhouse. Now, he still has to go out there and execute. There's a reason why he's 9-1. And you and I have talked about this show. We don't necessarily like taking 9-1 guys. I played on Bryson last week because I figured the other two favorites, which were Rahm and JT, were guys I wanted no part of, and I was correct, as each one, JT didn't really play well and Rahm missed the cut. You look at the favorites this week, and I'm not saying you have to pick a favorite, but I thought Bryson would be the favorite. DJ he's out. Bryson's now up there with Spieth, Koepka, and Rahm. Rahm played terrible last week. We haven't seen Spieth since the Masters, so expect some rust. And Koepka's battling a knee injury. Any of them can go out and win this event. But if I'm going to pick one of those guys, it's going to be the guy that this course is pretty much made for. Nothing is guaranteed. The guy's still got to make his putts. He's still got to hit the greens. As we know, when Bryson gets away with his drive, he does hit greens at a high accuracy. He basically is in the top 30 in greens and reg. It's when he misses them in the thick rough or in the water that he has problems. I don't see that being the case this week. I think he can actually go out there, hit the ball as far as he can, and run. You know, he's going to play well, because last week he didn't play well and he still had T9.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he plays number 13 and 14, because 13 is a 512-yard par 4, and it apparently goes uphill, sometimes into the wind, which is no big deal for him. It would be for you and me. But then they turn around on number 14, and it's 330 yards. So you can see some spectacular shot making by a lot of guys, but especially it'll be fun to see Bryson go after that number 14 and try to eagle it.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've seen it before. I believe it was the Arnold Palmer where he was going over the lake a couple of times. He cleared it. He was 100 yards ahead of Westwood, but then he couldn't get his iron to the green, and it didn't matter. I think he's really got to go low on the par 5s this week, drive some par 4s, and have a good week.
And the 18th at Sawgrass, he tried to go left over the lake, and they put out-of-bounds stakes there to prevent him from doing it. But I did see that Ryan Palmer has the course record, and he is a resident of the state of Texas, grew up in the state of Texas playing golf, so I would think that's probably a guy that's on the radar too.
Yeah, I have him as a top 20 at plus 150 and potentially a top 10 at 3-1. Here's a guy who, he's not going to wow you, but he is somebody who's going to make the cut every single week, so I think he's a fantastic play in DFS this week if you're looking for a guy to fill your lineup in. He's made the cut in 14 straight events. You had mentioned he's a Texas guy. He's from Amarillo, and he has metrics that back up what would be a bomber's course. He's 38th in driving distance, 32nd in shots gained off the tee, and the top 15 in both birdies and eagles made, which is what you need at a course like this. He does have 3 top 10s in this event, albeit at different courses, but he seems to play well no matter what the course is in his home state. And if you look at just this year, he recorded top 20s in both the Match Play and the Valero Houston Open, both in Texas. Also got a top 20 in the toughest field of the year at the Players. He finished runner-up at Torrey Pines in January. Torrey Pines, also known as a course that rewards you for hitting the ball far. So I think you're looking at a guy who, you could probably get him in the 35 to 40-1 range, or get him in a top 20 at plus 150 for someone to contend all weekend. I like him to fill out my lineup. I also like him in some of the props that I'm going to play him in.
So interesting you brought up Torrey Pines, because I actually drew a comparison to that. The one difference I noticed was that the greens at Craig Ranch are about 800 square feet bigger, and I wasn't sure whether that was going to require additional putting expertise or not. But bent grass greens at Torrey Pines, same here. That's quite interesting, because that is a bomber's hole course, especially the north course at Torrey Pines.
Yeah, and there's another guy on my list that I'm picking to win that you'll see in the column tomorrow that has won at Torrey Pines before. He actually won at Torrey Pines earlier this year in January, and that's Mark Leishman, who played very well a few weeks ago in combining with Cam Smith to win the Zurich. He has played very well at this event. Again, different courses, but he has 4 top 10s. One of them was a runner-up finish 2 years ago at Trinity Forest, which has the same type of fairways as this course does. So you can have some comparisons to Trinity Forest in this course with how the fairways are, comparisons with how the greens are to Torrey Pines, and Mark Leishman's won at both those courses. So he's played well at those type of courses. He also plays well on the Texas swing, as he's a very good player with the wind that you get out there. And he's 33-1, and he's 3-1 to finish in the top 10. It's someone I'm also going to play this week.
That's awesome. There's got to be more, though, on your list. I wonder who the next one is.
Where do you want me to go? I like Scottie Scheffler. He's a hometown product who who played very well at the match play the last time when the match play was held in Austin. He has some decent metrics, 36 in shot gains, tee degree, 15th off tee. He sits 32nd in driving distance. So he's not top 10 bomber like Bryson, but he's not a short game player either. So here's a guy who's played well recently. Talked about the runner-up at the match play. T5 with the tough field at the concession in Tampa. T20 at the Masters and 29th at Valspar, despite a final round 64. Scottie's biggest issue, and you saw it in the match play, is his work around the green, 129th, and 91st in putting. So I think it really comes down to the flat stick. I expect Scheffler to be in contention. He's going to have the home crowd behind him. He's a guy who's top 30 in eagles and birdies, so he's someone that plays well on long courses where you can score, has played recently, and is a local product that I actually like this week.
Yeah, and he's a guy that's on my list for what it's worth. I know my picks are not nearly as valuable as your picks, David, but Scheffler is definitely on that list. He's 14th in birdie average. That's what stood out for me, and he's also very good off the tee. So those combinations, I think, are pretty powerful at this venue.
Absolutely. If you can be well off the tee and you can get it out there and you can get away with missing every once in a while, make some eagles, make some birdies. There's par breaker stat that's out there that he's good at. All of the metrics Scottie lines up as, I call it good, not great. He's not in the top 10 in any of them, but he's not 191st either. He's kind of in the 25 to 30 range. And where he struggles is around the green, and this is not a course that gives you a lot of issues around the green. It's not sawgrass. It's not the heritage course, which is tough around the greens. This course is fairly straightforward. It's a bomber's place. You land the greens, you do well, and I think Scottie will do well here.
Yeah, and the par 5s are relatively short. The par 3s, I noticed that 3 of the 4 are over 200 yards, but again, at the tour level, over 200 yards only intimidates guys like you and me. But there's one name you have on the list here too, a player from South Africa that really got my attention when you gave me his name, Charles Schwartzel, who his recent form has been getting better and better and better over the last 64 rounds. So from that, I can see why he's on your list. What else is attractive to him this week?
I mean, the biggest thing to me is what you just hit is the recent form. He got off to a really, really bad start over the season, didn't really have anything good going on. He got to Augusta where he won the 2011 major Masters win, finished T26, kind of said, all right, maybe I'm back. Went out and lost in the playoff with fellow South African Louis Oosthuizen at the Zurich Classic, but then followed it up with a T21 and T14 at Valspar and Wells Fargo. And whereas a couple of weeks ago I played Justin Rose coming off his good Masters in Zurich events, thinking he was going to continue that, and they went ahead and threw it all the way at the Valspar. Schwartzel has taken it one step further and actually has combined for about 4 consecutive good events. You just mentioned the last, what did you say, 15, 16 rounds?
64.
64 rounds.
Yeah.
He's been pretty good. His weakness has and always will be putting. 129th on tour in shots gained putting. The one time he was able to make putts, he won the Masters, parring out the last 4 holes while everybody else had bogeys on them. So I think if he at least is in middle of the pack form when it comes to putting, like he was when they finished losing in a playoff to the Aussies back at the Zurich, they putted pretty well, and of course it came down to Oosthuizen missing that drive in the playoff. I think if he can get up there and putt decently and not lose a lot of strokes to the field, I think Schwartzel is a good candidate for a top 20. I'm playing him at plus 188. I'm thinking about playing him in some matchups. I played him in matchups each of the last 2 weeks and won off him. He's not a guy I'm going to pick to win. I don't think he's there yet. The course doesn't exactly fit him perfectly like it does to a Bryson or a Scheffler or a Leishman. So I'm going to be playing Schwartzel in props such as heads-up matchups and top 20 finishes because I think the way he's playing, I like to play guys who are playing hot and are playing well in matchups as opposed to thinking they're going to put it all in a bottle and win that week. I don't think Schwartzel's there yet, but I think he's in position where he can get us some dough doing other things like top 10s, top 20s, and potentially matchups. And you and I have always talked about it's not just buying the lottery ticket. Yes, 18-1 is fantastic on McIlroy, but you don't hit that every single week.
No.
If you can hit 4 top 10s like I did at the RBC, you're making just as much money, if not more, than the 18-1 on McIlroy.
Yep. And to clarify, Schwartzel's recent form, last 64 rounds, it was actually negative 0.5. And then steadily from there, last 32, minus 0.2. Last 16 rounds, a big jump to 0.7. And then the last 8 rounds have been exceptional at 1.43. So he's definitely on the rise. And I think he's flying under the radar because people look at him initially and say, oh, he's 177th in the official world golf rankings, so he must not be very good. So I think I love your idea with the matchups. I think you're going to get really good market value with him.
And some of these guys, you look at the body of work, and he struggled earlier in the year. He dropped off to 170 something in the world. Hasn't really played stellar since winning his major over a decade ago. But his recent form is good enough where I think you have a less than strong field, and he can make some waves.
Yep, absolutely. I love that pick. And the last one you have here, I think it's the last one, is Aaron Wise. Another name that I'm a little surprised to see, but then I dig into it and I can immediately see why. He's another player that seems to fit the recipe that's necessary to be a top 10 contender in this event.
Yeah, he's a guy. You and I, that on this show and in the column that'll be out tomorrow, I like to give out at least one flyer out there. Last week he was Emmanuel Grillo. He got off to a bad start on Thursday, but ended up in the top 5 on Saturday and eventually finished with a top 20. And he paid us off last week. I had Grillo as a top 20. This week, Aaron Wise, 66-1, 2-1 to finish in the top 20. Fits the mold just like Grillo did. Someone who's coming in playing well. Top 10 last week. Finishing with a 68-69 weekend, so he's coming in a little hot. 7th on tour and hitting greens, 38th off the tee and 26th tee to green. Also, not to be understated, we talked about it earlier with Leishman. He won this event in 2018 at Trinity Forest. Again, different course, same fairways. So we talk about hitting off the same fairways, 7th on tour and hitting those greens. So if he likes the fairways and he's already hitting well off the fairways and the greens, you're getting 66-1 on a guy who has played well at this event. He's played well at courses like this, and he played well last week. Those are the little trinity that I have that comes to getting these guys on flyers. I like him at 2-1 top 10, 2-1 top 20, 3.5-1 top 10, and we'll sprinkle a little bit of a 66-1 shot. I did it with Grillo, and I got all excited on Saturday when I saw him looking at the leaderboard top 5. I'm like, oh, wow, I have a 75-1 shot up there and tailed off, and that's what happens with 75-1 shots. But I think Aaron Wise is a good play. I haven't looked and see what he is in the DFS world yet. Hopefully he's not too expensive, but he is somebody that I'm going to be considering as well.
I think he's in that the low 8,000s. I think I can look that up after the show and then just retweet it on the show tweet. For that info, but that's I love the combination of all these guys you mentioned. I think actually you could put all of them into a DraftKings lineup and be under that $50,000 threshold pretty easily, with the exception of Bryson being pretty high up there in the list.
Right.
But
you and I talked last week, and I tend to not take any of the $10,000 and $11,000 guys. I like to kind of balance it between the 7,200 and 9,500 range. I did have 2 different lineups last week. I went both ways. I had one that was in the 72 to 92 range, and then I did play McIlroy in one of them, which obviously helped out because he's a big shot guy. Probably will do the same thing this week, try to get all these guys into one lineup, and then play one with Bryson as well, with trying to find some other hidden gems there. And that's the tricky part of DFS. If you want to get all your favorite guys in there, you're not going to be able to get one of the favorites. So.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So to recap the show, have you decided which ones of these players are going to be top 10s and 2 wins and top 20s?
Yeah, I can tell you that I'm going to have for wins, I'm going to be going with Bryson to win at 9-1, also top 10 at -125. I'll be going with Scottie Scheffler at 22-1 and 2-1 top 10. Leishman the same, 33-1 and 3-1 top 10. Wise, I'm going to be doing 66-1 and 2-1 top 20. Ryan Palmer, top 20. Schwartzel, top 20. I'm going to throw one more name out there just to have some fun with it.
Okay.
The guy won the event last time it was played in 2019. He was a long shot then. He's done absolutely nothing since then. Sung Kang is 350-1. I would never give out a 350 to 1 shot. You look at the metrics, he's no higher than 176 in any metric. He hasn't finished higher than 37 in any event. He has been awful. The guy is a member at this course. He won it 2 years ago at the other course. Is he worth a little bit of a play? You're getting 8 to 1 on your money for him to finish in the top 20. So I'm going to be playing top 20 finish, 8 to 1 for a guy who's a member at this course. Not many people have seen this course, and won this event 2 years ago on a similar course. Is he going to win it 350 to 1? If he does, we'll all be on a beach somewhere. But I'm going to play the 8 to 1 top 20 finish. And hey, I'm going to call it what it is. He's miscut 9 of the last 13 events. Finished no better than 37th at any of them. T29 is his best finish in the last year of the tour, and that's at the Masters for what that's worth. So there's nothing on his resume that says he's going to play well, other than the fact that if you like course history and you like recent event history, he's got both. Recent form as bad as humanly possible. There's that caveat. He's no better than you and me right now. But there's no price on me winning. There's no price on you winning. You can get a price on Sung Kang winning.
I would be honored if I was 350 to 1 at a PGA event. You know, but it's the same as McIlroy last week was of value. Yep. This is obviously a much different type of player right now, but yeah, just the fact that he's a member there and he knows the course. I mean, that right away in my eyes makes him at least 125 to 1.
Right, and I actually wrote that in the write-up that you'll see tomorrow. That last week McIlroy was the ultimate course history versus recent form play. Course history won out over his poor recent form. But this was Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy, who's won 5 majors. Rory McIlroy, who had 5 top 10s in December, January, and February before he started playing bad in March. Sung Kang has none of that. So he's not going to go ahead and win it at 350 to 1. But he's a member there. So he's played it more than everybody else combined. Like you said, he should be I kept scrolling down looking for him, figuring out 125, 150, 175, 200. No, he's 350 to 1.
At 8 to 1 top 20.
8 to 1 top 20.
Love it. Definitely playing. Love it. Well, David, that'll cap off our show today. I know you got things to do here this afternoon. So thank you again for being on the show. Thank you, the listeners, the viewers, everybody that's supporting this show. Big shout out to you guys. So for David, myself, the Predictive Playbook, Sports Memo, and Wager Talk, may all the wins be yours.